Joel Klatt is with us. Klatt joins us each week, courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign up for boy, they have got a great deal we're going to tell you about this week at MyBookie.ag. Code next round to get that deal. Klatt, what is up, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys? What's going on?
Not a whole lot. We were just discussing, and you've seen some in person. You get to watch a lot on film. Is there a dominant team in college football that you truly believe in? And it's not Georgia for me. I don't know where I would go. Is there one from what you've seen in person or on film that you would say,
good question,
that's a dominant team I would believe in?
When it's phrased like that, not really, not really. But you could also phrase it as, like, at least in my career covering college football, I've never been this confident in the top 10. Where there's a razor thin margin between all of those teams. For so long, guys, you could get to 3 and then putting a 4th place team felt almost gross because you're like, I like this that number seems too high for this team, right? Like there was such a gap between the best teams and generally like the best SEC teams and maybe one other like an Ohio State or someone like that, or a Florida State or a Clemson. And then it was like the top 2 SEC teams. And then there was a massive gap between the rest of the country. And you'll read these notes across the country and it'll be like, Notre Dame has been top 5 or top 10. And I'm like, yeah, but they haven't felt like it. They haven't felt what I categorize as above the line. And so it's an interesting wording that you bring up. You bring up like, well, is there a dominant team? No, but I think there's a lot of above the line teams. And above the line for me is defined as teams that I think can compete for a playoff spot, win a playoff game, and even a national championship. This is as much parity as I can remember in college football at this point. If there was a team that I would say is scariest, I wouldn't say dominant or a team that I trust. The team that I think is actually the scariest team out there is Washington. Mm-hmm. If you watch Washington play, it's like, okay, nobody's stopping them. So then it becomes, can you score 50? Can you score 40 against Washington? And, a lot of people will look at the box score and say like, well, Cal had 500 yards and so many points. That game was 52-12. And virtually all of Cal's yards came in just absolute garbage time. So Washington would be my answer, but I have to rephrase it a little bit and just say scariest.
One of those above-the-line teams staying out west is Utah, and I think Nate Johnson's going to end up being a good quarterback. The guy is so athletic, but these moments seem a little big at times for Nate Johnson with the 3 fumbles this past week. Their defense is incredibly good. With all that said, we were asking the question, do you think Cam Rising ever comes back? Because if he doesn't, Joel, they're going to end up getting beat. Maybe it's this weekend in Corvallis. They've still got to go to SC. They've got Oregon. They've got to go to Washington. It's a brutal schedule.
So the entire narrative for me surrounding Utah is that they are doing this undermanned. It will not continue, to your point, if they continue to be undermanned, in particular at the most important position. I like Nate Johnson, and I think that he can end up being a good player, but it's Cam Rising takes them to a different level. I think we've all seen that in certain games, in particular like last year against USC. I think they also need to get healthy at the line of scrimmage, even though they were dominant at the line of scrimmage. Utah is a really good team. And the Pac-12, they legit have 5 teams that you can say, all right, like those teams can play with anybody in the country. But to your point, everybody has a flaw. That's Utah's flaw, is that their quarterback has a low ceiling. Not all that dissimilar, by the way, from Bama. If Nate Johnson is the quarterback for Utah, I think of them the same way as I think of Alabama, a really, really good team that has a low ceiling. And if Rising comes back, that changes for the Utes.
If Alabama had Cam Ward, how good are they?
They're number 1 in the country. There would be the dominant team that I would say is head and shoulders above the rest. Their roster suggests that they should be that. And their quarterback holds them back. And so they have to play a very different style and philosophy. And they can win with that style and philosophy. They might even and probably will win the West, because I don't think the West is very good at all, in particular with what we saw from LSU and Arkansas on Saturday night. So they might win the West, but it would be an upset if they were to win the SEC. If Cam Ward, who nobody knows, quarterback at Washington State, was the quarterback at Alabama. They would be the best team in the country, and I would say absolutely they're going to win the national championship in a year in which we don't have a lot of great teams.
I don't want to box you in by saying a question here. I just want your thoughts on what went on between Oregon and Colorado. Everything that went on Oregon and Colorado, from Dan Lanning allowing cameras in pregame until the very end. Just your thoughts on that.
I have a lot of thoughts. I think that let's start with this premise. There are fans and players and media that don't like what's going on at Colorado. They don't like the hype surrounding Colorado. Just like there were people that didn't like the hype surrounding Tim Tebow. Okay. But the group that dislikes it the most is opposing coaches. And I talked to these guys off the record. They despise it. They hate it. They hate the attention that Colorado is getting. They hate the fact that they know it's not going anywhere. They hate the fact that they know that this guy is going to be able to recruit at the top end of college football. They hate that 60 Minutes was there and that every show was there and that it's Deion all the time, everywhere. They hate it. And that's what you saw from Dan Lanning. Was a guy that wanted to embarrass Colorado. Now, there is an obvious point, and I'm going to make this point with a preface. I really like Dan Lanning. I think he's excellent. I think Oregon is really good, and I'll get to that in a moment. This is going to be a little bit of a long answer, so I'm sorry.
We got all the time
Jimmy.
in the world.
Right.
All the time in the world.
So, isn't it odd that you're decrying, if that's a word, you're frustrated with, your frustration is that they are in it for likes and clicks. And your answer is to invite cameras into your pregame speech?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It seemed very hypocritical, yeah.
So it was planned and rehearsed, and he was out to embarrass them, But to sit there and be like, they can win on YouTube. It's like, you're creating a video. That's all you're doing. You're creating a video that's not going on YouTube. It's going on network television. His comments at the half of like, I hope all those people are watching now. Well, guess what? They were. At least in the overnights, it was the top rated game of the day over Ohio State and Notre Dame, which is wild.
Is that right?
Bonkers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In the overnights. Now, like the smaller markets have to come in. It might not end up being the top rated game of the day, but in the major markets throughout the country, the top rated game was a 5.3 rating, which is massive for Colorado, Oregon. It was a 5.0 for Notre Dame and Ohio State.
And by the way, that's going up against Alabama head to head.
That's exactly right.
Which is a TV juggernaut usually. Yeah.
So now let's go back. So Dan has a plan, and he's out to embarrass them. And he's going to do it, hell or high water. Cameras in the pregame, talking about likes. It's like if that was genuine, there'd be no cameras in the locker room. If you're really in it just for wins, there would be no camera in the locker room. That was an obvious kind of point to begin with. Now the more subtle point, and I think this is the one that I'm most excited about. Okay, if you really think about it, Dan is a smart guy, really smart guy. And he wouldn't do that unless he knew. Like he knew exactly what was going to happen. He watches the film. He knows not only his team, but he knows the opposition. And he's like, nope, like I know what we have. Or else he wouldn't do that. Cameras wouldn't be in there. He wouldn't be barking like that unless he knew that his team was an above the line, excellent team. And the thing about it is Dan knows what it actually takes. So to me, it's like you look at his history and he knows the speed it takes and the physicality it takes at the line of scrimmage, the quality quarterback play that it takes and everything that it takes because he's seen it. He has seen the modern standard, which is Georgia. He helped build Georgia. He helped recruit what Kirby has got going on at Georgia, right? The two-time defending national champion. And so when he does that and he's that confident, it tells me that he believes that Oregon is at that level. And that was a little bit of the subtext that I took away from it. One, he hates what's going on at Colorado. He was also in it for the likes, and he is uber confident in a team, and he knows what it's supposed to look like. So maybe we should all be uber confident in the Oregon Ducks. And they went out there and did exactly what he intended, which was embarrass Colorado. And Colorado played terrible. And more specifically, Shedeur played awful. You like watching the tape in the first quarter of that game, there was zero anticipation. He missed some wide open throws and held the ball. And you can't do that in the small margin that they had as a 3-touchdown underdog.
Joel Klatt is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Klatt appears weekly courtesy of MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign up for MyBookie.ag. We ask athletes to give us 110%. MyBookie this week is giving you 110%. We'll tell you about that. MyBookie.ag, code next round. I think even in a win at Notre Dame, some of the flaws that worried me about Ohio State were very evident, Klatt. I just don't know about them. And aside from the fact that their opponent had 10 men on the field, back-to-back plays, biggest plays of the game, which is alarming if I'm a Notre Dame fan, Ohio State, I don't know. I don't leave that game any more confident in them than I entered the game with.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was the exact opposite. That was one of the rare games that I'm more confident in both teams.
Okay.
Moving forward. Because I had some major questions about whether Notre Dame could actually play at the top end of college football, which, let's face it, whether they've been ranked high or not, they haven't been a real threat to win a national championship. Even when they played for the national championship, that game was a mere afterthought to what was the real national championship, which was Bama beating Aaron Murray and Todd Gurley in 12, right? So I come away thinking that, like, okay, Notre Dame has the requisite quarterback and the physicality at the line of scrimmage to go and handle the rest of their schedule. I think USC is in peril when they go to South Bend, in particular, the way that they looked at Arizona State on Saturday. And then Ohio State, while, yes, you are correct, there were some of those things that crept up, short yardage running game. There was a major question about their quarterback coming in, and you don't go out in that environment in the last minute 26 and make the throws that he did unless you're an absolute dude. So I think they leave this with more confidence. If you're Penn State and Michigan, you're looking at that team saying to yourself, okay, like, it's not a finesse team. They can stand in there and just deliver haymakers with you and end up winning the game. They've got to get better in the short yardage. There's no doubt, but I think Notre Dame is really good. That was one of those games, and it's been very rare throughout the history of my career that I come away thinking more positively about each team, and I did in that game. And in large part due to the fact that both teams were making plays, the schematics were good. I didn't feel like someone went out there and lost the game as much as it was won. Having said that, the Notre Dame coaching staff has got to be sick to their stomach, because your main job as a coach is to put your players in position to be successful, basically get out of the way. And throwing a screen on the second down, I thought was because of the way first down happened and the odds of you actually moving the chains there, the screen on second down was an egregious call. Maybe not egregious, but certainly not one I would have made. It allowed Ohio State to retain a timeout, still get the ball with 1:26 and a timeout, which they needed after the grounding. And then here's the thing about the 10 men. Like, you can understand it if there is just chaos at the end. They played 2 consecutive snaps with 10 guys after a defensive timeout.
I know.
That cannot happen. Sick to your stomach if you're Notre Dame. Now, whether that's definitely the game, do they definitely stop them? I don't know. Like, does Ohio State score anyways? Who knows? But man, you don't feel like you gave your kids the best chance to win. And then the other part of this, as a player, aren't you dying to be on the field? How do you not know if you're on the field or not?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Hey,
but I know that, like, to go back to the original question, I actually think Ohio State looks at Penn State and Michigan more differently and with more confidence now, even with some of the things that crept up in the short yardage run game, which is what you're pointing to. Don't you feel a little bit like, okay, Like now we can get in there and slug it out and win. Maybe.
Hey, what are these quarterbacks going to start getting paid in NIL? And the reason I bring this up, back to Cam Ward, when you look at Washington State, you look at Kansas with Jalen Daniels, you look at Duke with Riley Leonard, they've got really good quarterback play. And you've got places like Auburn and Alabama right here in state that have, well, Auburn's got awful quarterback play. Alabama yet to be determined. But it is kind of amazing in NIL, people thought that the rich would get richer, but that's not necessarily true.
It's not necessarily true, but it's been so good for college football. The transfer portal and NIL has been so good. I mean, think of, the Pac-12, they have 8 quarterbacks that started their career basically, I would categorize in the SEC footprint, or thereabouts, if you count Oklahoma as the SEC footprint. So the mobility of players and the opportunity to find a place that you can become kind of a star and the biggest fish in a smaller pond means that you can find yourself NIL dollars. But I also would point to I think that we're also looking at a natural evolution of football. What do I mean by that? Well, the quarterback position is a reps position. And if you see the guys that are really excelling, they've got a lot of experience. And generally speaking, the guys that are excelling at a high level have been in the same system for multiple years. And the guys that we see that are struggling are the ones that have maybe bounced around. And it's like, is it really working for them? So, when I'm looking at this position, I know I felt awful in the first year of a system. And I felt much better in the second year of a system. So while mobility has certainly helped, you can also make an argument that these guys that are really succeeding are the ones that have been there for a while and can master an offense. It's hard to put your finger on exactly what's happening, but I will tell you this, that the quarterback play in general in college football has been really high. And I think part of that is the NIL. And the other aspect of this is that guys that would be 3rd through 5th or 6th round draft picks can make as much money in college now on an annual basis than what they would make going into the NFL and being a middle to late round draft pick. You can make $600,000, which is what you would make in the NFL. So guys don't have to leave. And we're seeing a lot more veteran quarterbacks with a lot of experience under their belt.
Saturday's big noon kick, USC, who struggled to put away the worst team in the Pac-12 Saturday at Colorado. 11 a.m. Fox, the big noon kick, where you'll see Klatt, Gus, Jenny, and the entire gang there.
My projection is don't get off that Colorado bandwagon, because they will make this game interesting enough that Colorado will look different on Monday than they do right now.
I would not have said that last week, Klatt, but after Saturday night, I do not know with USC.
USC looked like the 2022 version of USC, allergic to tackling.
Yep.
And at that point, it's like, well, let's go get in the shootout.
Yeah.
Have you ever called a 66-45 game? Because you're
In
about
fact,
to.
You can go back and check this out. I believe it was in 2012, maybe I think 2012. I called the Baylor, West Virginia, Geno Smith game that was like 72-65 in Morgantown. I called that game.
Yep. You guys should just use the 1988 Holiday Bowl graphics in this broadcast. Little throwback graphics for the Holiday Bowl.
That would be good.
Yeah, I'm coming off seeing a team score 70 yesterday, Klatt. So,
dude, my Broncos are growing up in Denver. This is painful.
Yes. We took a knee on you. We didn't kick for the record, so you're welcome.
Yeah, Sean Payton ain't the savior.
Yeah.
He has crushed that defense.
Yeah.
Man, what are we doing? Like, Broncos are a proud organization. You got to be flying high with the Dolphins there, right?
3 games in, we'll see what happens. But I kind of like.
Hey, Bama for sure wins the West, right? I mean, the West is really bad.
Not for sure.
Not for sure, but I
7-6 at the half.
Yeah.
1st and goal at the 1, and you get a scoring drive. The rare scoring drive when you collect minus 22 yards.
You guys are just haters.
Hey,
Bama's winning the West.
Go watch.
Not even close.
Hey, text me.
Not even close.
Are you going to watch Milroe? Are you going to watch Milroe tape?
I did. I watched the first half. Not It's not great. They're gonna listen. They're
Hey,
gonna
if you need a nap today, watch Peyton Thorne.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See,
Man.
that was not on my list. I always make a list of like,
Yeah.
all right, who are the guys that I want to go check out? Peyton Thorne wasn't on the list.
No, I was curious
unfortunately.
about second half Milroe. He played a lot better in the second half. So if you get around to it, text me what you think in second half Milroe.
Man, you guys, y'all down on Alabama. They're gonna be playing. They're gonna be playing with a one loss. Mark my words. Alabama will win the West and play Georgia for the right to go to the playoff this year.
Okay.
If that happens, they should put a statue. Oh, they already have. They should call Nick Saban the. Oh, they already have. It'll be a hell of a coaching job.
It will be. That's
exactly right.
all right. Big new kick. USC and Colorado Saturday. Thank you, Klatt. Have a good week.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, buddy. We'll see you. Joel with us, courtesy of mybookie.ag. They've never done it. I don't know how long they'll do it. 110% bonus. 110% bonus.
So if I give you 50,
Oh, here we go. Don't do math. Don't do math.
they put 55 in there.
There you go.
Yeah. If I do 100, they put 110 in.
Yes,
Up to $1,000. I hear.
Code next round, Jimmy D, to find out. Code next round, mybookie.ag. I like the tightrope of math.
Yeah. 110%.
110%. We ask our players to do it.
Yeah. Only this week, though. It's only this week, I'm told.
I don't know.
And don't go to their website and look for it. You only get it with us by using next round.
Code next round, mybookie.ag.